Good morning. We start the last day of Barcelona New Economy Week with the aim of reactivating the economy in our country and also in the world. As you know, we have been offering conferences, debates, interviews for 3 days in 10 different stages which are connected to each other. We have been talking about logistics, real estate, digital industry, economic zones, sustainability, mobility, talent, science, city and e-commerce. And as you know also, we are focused on this last one, on e-commerce. We are right now giving way to a new and interesting interview about the e-commerce revolution in India and the success story of BigBasket.com, a leading e-grocery marketplace and also the India's largest supermarket online. I leave you now with Hitesh Bhatt. Hitesh, thank you for being here with us and conducting this interview.
Thank you.
Hi, Vash. I'm going to present you a little bit. He is the Marketing and Communications Director in Retailers Association of India. He has a rich experience in organization strategy and marketing, also advertising, public relations, corporate communications, and sales. He is also the editorial director of the magazine Story. So, Hitesh, I leave you with your interviewer.
Thank you. A warm welcome to all of you. At the onset, let me thank BINDIA for organizing such a wonderful 3-day summit. Today we have with us one of India's big corporate leaders, innovator and disruptor, Mr. Hari Menon, who is the co-founder of BigBasket. Everybody in India knows about BigBasket, and today we are going to talk about Indian e-grocery business, changing consumers and business models. Welcome to the show, Hari. Pleasure to have us here with us today. Thanks.
Thank you, Hitesh. Pleasure to be here.
Okay. So, at the onset, let me start 1.5 years back, where was the Indian consumer before what happened in the last 1 year? And how has the Indian consumer changed, proposed the e-grocery market? And what difference you could see before and after, and we'll deliberate more upon it.
Yes, Hitesh. So let me just take you back, to pre-pandemic, when there was a certain behavior that we used to see in consumers, to what happens during the pandemic, and then what happens in a situation now when actually the pandemic starts weaning away. And things start getting back to normal. So pre-pandemic, we all know there was a certain format, certain structure of the market that that was there. As soon as the pandemic hit, one of the key things that happened first is that people just start stocking, right? So they just buy more than what they should be buying, because they're all worried whether things will be open, things won't close. So essentially, basket sizes just swell up, right? And they become really, really large. One. Second is a huge number of people start coming online, right? And that's what you see happening from a capacity consumer perspective. More importantly, what really happens from a consumer behavior and from what they really buy, you see, I wouldn't call it a shift, but you will see a tremendous amount of increase, right, in certain categories, and I'll call them out, one by one. For example, fruits and vegetables basically see a huge jump, right? Because everybody is at home and people are starting to avoid buying food from outside. So people are all basically getting to cook at home. Second is that there's a huge increase in basically frozen, ready-to-eat products, right? And this is especially from the younger crowd and the younger generation, and easier for them to just bring in something that they can just put it into their microwave oven and the food is ready. So a lot of these curries, ready-to-eat curries in frozen form, ready-to-eat food in frozen form actually just gets a huge, huge boost. Number 3, people start experimenting a lot at home, right? So they want to kind of, because they're stuck at home. And so you will find one tremendous increase in, for example, baking products, right? Everybody is like, sitting and baking cakes at home and trying new recipes and trying new things. You'll see a huge jump in gourmet, in all the newer things that people want to keep trying. During normal times, people don't have time for all this, right? So today instead of one person at home, there are 2 people at home and 3 people at home, and everybody's trying to experiment. So you will see frozen foods increasing, fruits and vegetables increasing. essentially ready to eat increasing, and a lot of these experimental stuff, literally going up. Gardening just shoots up because everybody is now sitting at home and have a lot more time. So you'll see categories like this that see a massive jump and massive increase. But I must call out one category, right, which really saw a tremendous increase and sustains and remains, and that is everything around health, right? People get a lot more health conscious and hence buy more healthy food, right, than what we typically call non-healthy or junk food. And hence you will see increasingly people buying more millets, people eating more of these stuff which are always more of protein based products and stuff like that, which people find very healthy. So that's really what happens. What happens when COVID starts weaning away, which is typically what you see today, which things are back to normal. Lot of these categories remain because while it's weaning away, it is still a very hybrid situation, right? People are not going to office 100% of the time, right? People are going partly, people are still spending time at home. So these categories remain. And one category that remains and will remain is health, right? As a category perspective. So that's really what happens from a category standpoint. And if you want, I have some data on the increase that we saw in some of those categories. Like, for example, juices, and that too healthy juices, right, were increased by 278%, right, during COVID. Gourmet ice creams, yogurt and Srikhand, healthy cold drinks, chocolates, condensed milk, all increased by 200%, right? A lot of these are ingredients that people are trying at home and, and doing stuff. So that's what it is, Hitesh.
Okay. I think these categories that you mentioned, to sum it up, like, the younger crowd was also there and they wanted to experiment. Frozen, ready-to-eat food has gone up, gourmet has gone up. We have seen juices, ice cream, etc. have gone up. Health is something which is, again, one of the key categories that you mentioned. So with this, you did mention that, pre and today we have come back to somewhat normal, not 100% yet. But where do you see that how much of this change is, according to you, a permanent change? And in what areas would be a permanent change? Or shall we go back to, 1.5 years?
Yeah, no, it won't go back. It will largely, some of those categories will go back and life starts to become normal. Even as far as sales is concerned, sales starts dropping and coming down. But what happens is it comes down and remains at a level which is much higher than pre-COVID, right? So it actually, all the e-commerce and online businesses have in that sense benefited. But let me tell you some of the stuff that continue to remain, right, and continue to remain very strong. One is basically I talked about ready to cook and all the baking stuff, right? All the cooking sauces, baking stuff, etc. They continue because it's a very hybrid situation still. People have enjoyed what they're doing, so they just want to continue doing what they're doing in that sense. Second is a lot of this premium and gourmet tea, right, has suddenly seen an increase and it remains. So people just have got into a lifestyle and they just want to continue basically in that lifestyle. A lot of premium spreads, right, which I essentially talked about. Cocktail mixes, right? I forgot to mention that, because people make a lot of these things at home now. And so a lot of these cocktail mixes, etc., are all starting to do well. But one permanent feature, and I'm again repeating, is always going to be health. People are definitely more and more conscious as far as what they buy, and that will continue to remain. COVID, no COVID, I think going forward, we will see tremendous increase in some of those products, right? So I told you our whole sales of our millet and millet-based products, has shot up. Products which are very protein-based, right? Like all protein bars and a lot of those, that stuff have shot up, right? And those continue to sustain.
Okay. With this, I would like to move to the next question is about the digital adoption and the online behavior. Initially, Indians, were less prone to buy or less habitual to buy, grocery online. Although there was this, what kind of consumer shift you saw and what kind of behavior you saw online? We saw the categories, but was it easy for the Indian consumer to adopt and adapt? Because, Indian predominantly go to the grocery store and they would like to do the touch and feel. And obviously books and ticketing and travel and apparels was always there. Food as a category was never that, engaging for the Indian consumer. So how did you see this digital transformation of the Indian consumer from offline to online as far as grocery is concerned?
Hitesh, I'll give you a simple math on this, very simple math, right? I'll tell you, adoption as soon as COVID hit was very, very high because people didn't have a choice, na? Right? So there were stores were shut and everything was closed. So they didn't have a choice. They had to transform. The question you're asking me is, how comfortable were people with that transformation? Because of India traditionally being a very brick and mortar, kind of business going forward. But let me tell you a simple math: 100 new people who came in COVID, right? 60 stayed on the platform, 40 went back. If that helps, right? And that 40 that went back, there is very little you can do about it because those 40, I don't think ever going forward they will really adopt to the digital world because they are really people who are completely hooked onto the physical world and they'll remain there. But 60 of the 100 new people who came in stay on the platform, right? Which means they get comfortable, they get used to it. And that's the time when, companies need to really demonstrate the ease of online and the use of online. See, the problem in the first wave was that it hit us so badly that this 60-40 was not 60-40. It was the other way, actually. It was 35-40 people stayed and 60 people left. That's because we were not getting slots. People were struggling. We were all new to this. When you're creating capacity, say for 50 customers, and if you get 200 customers, you know what happens, right, Hitesh? The thing just breaks. And there's very little you can do about it. The second wave was really, really good and interesting because all the learnings of the first wave came into the second wave, right? All the innovation, all the new things that you did. And hence, you had a situation where almost 60 people stayed and 40 people, will still go back to your role. So that's a simple math, that we saw.
I think this is an interesting insight that 40% went away and 60 stayed on. But and we'll have to find out where those 40 have gone, because the other question related to this is, you as an online player were always there, always aggressive and moving forward. But the game changed for the offline players also, and the offline players also adopted technology, and the hyperlocal business, the model has gone up in India, like anything. So where did you see the change that the offline guys did in the online space? And since you were already in online, did you reciprocate by doing something offline?
Yeah. So we didn't reciprocate by doing anything offline because we didn't have to, because we saw a huge shift that happened to the digital world. Those 40 people are bound to go back, right? And telling you one more wave will come, that 40 will become 30. But they will go back. And where did they go? They went back to their own traditional stores, right? Because the stores start opening, right? The very good question that you asked is, what did online do? And that is where the concept of omni-channel, started becoming very, very strong. And it is starting to become very strong. And my belief personally is that the future of retail is omni-channel. Future of retail is omni-channel. And when I say omni-channel, it has to be a very seamless experience, Hitesh, which means that if a store is going online, what they do online and offline must be very seamless, right? It shouldn't be that what I do online is very, very different from what I do offline, right? You can't disrupt in pricing. You can't disrupt in many things. It's just that you're allowing the customer to go from one place to another. If you're giving loyalty points, if you're giving all of that, it must be very seamless across both. And you'll see seamless omni-channel play very, very strong. Because most of these people, what they did when people started coming back, is that they continued their online channels, right? They continued delivering home, right? And that they only will get stronger and stronger. If you ask me, do we get also offline and omni-channel? Answer is yes. But that's not driven by COVID. That's driven by the need of the business, which is starting to become more and more omni-channel.
Okay. When this kind of 60% staying and 40 going on, and unprecedented demand coming in, which was never planned also because of the circumstances, a lot of supply chain disruptions have happened. And you must have also, I'm sure, had your experiences. Would you like to share what kind of supply chain disruptions you have gone through and how have you managed them, successfully?
Yeah, the supply chain, the first wave was really, really terrible, Hitesh, because the problem in the first wave was that people ran away, right? People moved away to their respective villages because people were so scared, right? And then we had the borders which were locked and which were closed. So people couldn't come in between districts and all that, right? Because we didn't know what was going on in the first wave, right? It was all new and everything was. So that impacted the entire supply chain really badly, really badly. So large companies like Unilever, Procter and Gamble's, etc., had to cut back, right? And I had coined a term, when I had spoken to Kumar during the COVID time, I had coined a term called doing more with less. And that is what everybody started adopting, which means that people reduced the SKU range and started producing more of few things than producing the entire range, because people were, there was a huge shortage of people. And hence, in our assortment itself, from 50,000 products, we had to reduce it down to, how much it is? 4,000. And because those are the only 4,000 that suppliers were able to supply, right? The second wave was a lot easier because people knew that they didn't have to run away, because people had started getting used to COVID. But the problem with the second wave was that the COVID was so bad that people started falling sick. And so we didn't get into that kind of a problem. So what 50,000 became was 25,000 and not 3,000 or 4,000. And that was the difference. So supply chain disruptions, you can't manage. The only supply chain that worked and continued to work during COVID was the farmers, right? The whole fruits and vegetables and staple supply chain remained intact, right? They were largely able to supply, harvests were going on, they were producing, their people shortages were not as bad as what it was for factories, like HUL, etc., like Unilever, etc. So the farming community continued to supply, that didn't get disrupted, but everything else got disrupted.
So with this supply chain, what do you recommend today when somebody in the e-grocery business wants to, launch, or maybe the players who are already there? What would be your suggestion to strengthen their supply chain? Looking at the current scenario, the past has gone, it has been bitter, but the experiences have been better, and that has made our supply chains more robust. But now going ahead, since the things are coming back to normal, from a supply chain perspective, what would be your suggestions or key pointers for the e-grocery players?
Hitesh, there are only two things in supply chain, right? The only two things. One is go as deep as you can in the supply chain, right? That's critical, as deep as you can, because that is the best source for you, right? So for example, if you're buying HUL products from a wholesaler, you will get impacted very badly. If you're buying from the next level distributor, you'll also get impacted. But if you're going directly to the CNF and the factory, you get least impacted. So the first formula is go deep, right? And for which, it's a chicken and egg situation, Hitesh, for which you need volumes. You cannot go deep till you generate volumes. So the chicken and egg. So you have to go through the pain initially till you actually build the volumes, till you get there. But at least from a farming community perspective, try and see as deep as essentially as you can. Number two, most important, your supply chain must be tech enabled. You cannot manage a supply chain manually. You cannot manage a supply chain through jugaad. Now, I can use the word jugaad. I don't know how to explain it to a whole lot of people who may not understand it, but you just cannot manage it, in a haphazard manner, right? It has to be process driven, and it has to be solidly enabled by technology, right? Which itself helps you go through all this pain and all these difficulties. So two things. One is go deep into supply chain. Second is enable it with technology to the extent you can, right? And that reduces pain.
So the two key takeaways: go deep and tech enabled, if you want to have the robust supply chain for
Correct.
Today's e-grocery business in India. Again, a question related to the business model. We have seen the mom and pop stores adopting to various hyper local apps and various they have used WhatsApp, etc. So that's the digital transformation they have done. We have seen a lot of D2C brands coming up as far as food category is concerned. Now, and this has happened in the last 2-3 years, especially last 1.5 years to be precise. Now, is this impacting the big players, and how will this e-grocery scenario turn out to be as far as India is concerned?
No, this is, see, nothing impacts the grocery business per se. I'll tell you why, Hitesh. I'm a big believer of the fact that all businesses, any business that has a very large TAM, and by TAM I mean total addressable market, if they are very large, then more and more players who are disrupting and coming into the digital world only expands the market. It's a very simple logic, Hitesh, right? Today, the online business is just 1% of the overall grocery business, 1%, right? But today, Big Basket is $1 billion business, right? 5% is modern trade, correct? And there are billion-dollar businesses, multiple billion-dollar businesses in DMart, and so many such companies, right? The reason is that because the market size is so large, right? So there is space for everybody to come in and markets open up. So Kirana people, when they come in, they're serving a certain type of need, Hitesh. They only carry 1,000 SKUs, 1,500 SKUs, right? And that you will serve a certain need. Big Basket carries 50,000 SKUs, right? So you serve what is called a full stack need, right? A larger basket, right? Weekly buying. So what do people use Kiranas for essentially today? They have their top ups, they have their emergency buy, there are relationships that they build up. So everything is complementary, right? Nothing disrupts. World over, Kiranas have not gone. Small mom and pop stores have not gone. They all coexist because the market sizes are large, right? But what you will see is increased adoption of digital across the channels in grocery, right? Be it modern trade, be it single, small, supermarkets, chains, be it Kirana. All of them will start adopting technology, whether it is for selling to customers or whether it is for buying from suppliers. We have a very large B2B business, right? Today, more and more Kiranas are ordering on their app. They're using their app and ordering on Big Basket, which is our B2B business, right? So technology is now, digital revolution is coming now across the board. But everybody will coexist, Hitesh. Everybody will coexist.
So what you mean to say is that eventually everything will be on a tech platform, or there will be a digital transformation even in the Kirana ecosystem. Because if today, what percentage would be the the Kiranas out of 100 maybe using tech platforms like yours to do their businesses?
No, today it will be very small. We'll have hardly about 10%. See, 95% of the business is Kiranas today in the country, right? 94%. Out of that, hardly about 10% would have adopted. But 10% is so large, right? Because it's such a large market. And Absolutely. That is rapidly growing, Hitesh, rapidly growing. Going forward, you'll find that companies will start mandating, saying if you want to order to us, my salesperson won't come. Because it's very costly, right? The whole thing is not cost effective, right? Salespeople will start coming down, right? So people will start forcing channels to start using the app to order.
So it's an interesting thing. Over the years, now in the coming next few years, we will see the total trade, the data distribution network, and the Kirana mom and pop stores adopting the digital route and doing their businesses, whether B2B or B2C through online. And that's where the e-commerce and the e-grocery business in India is transforming.
In 5 years, you see the shift.
Okay, now what is this 5-year shift? Here is a prediction by Mr. Hari Menon. You can please give your prediction, whatever it is.
5-year shift will be that 10% will become 75%.
Okay, so
what you'll see the 5-year shift. In that 95% of the market today, which is today 10%, will shift to 75%.
I'm sorry, Hitesh, Hari, we have to stop now because we are running out of time. Thank you, Hari, for explaining your experience to us. It's clear that commerce will become more and more omni-channel in the future. Thank you, Hitesh, for conducting this interview. We have to say goodbye and say thank you all our global partners, to the Ministry of Transport, the Barcelona City Council, also Servihabitat and Akbar companies. And no more to say. Follow us on the next session. We will be talking about the internationalization of Spanish companies in the new economy. See you in a bit.